So, for our topic today, we'll be talking more about storytelling technique. And you might be wondering, how is that relevant to hiring and to you getting the job that you would like to get? The thing is that, people think that most recruiting techniques or the most recruiting processes just go via you applying to a job and then getting the job if you have the skill. This is not really the case every time. Therefore, there are new techniques that people are using right now to get the job that they wish to get. And specifically today, we're going to be discussing storytelling and how you can actually use it in your future recruitment process. So, for our agenda for today, we are going to discuss storytelling and how it works and why. Because you might be wondering, stories are for kids, but that's not always the case. Stories are also for grown-ups, and it works in such an amazing way in your brain, but also through behaviors. Additionally, we will be discussing an example, discussing a personal storyline of an imaginary person that may, look just like you, have the same experiences, but also, a familiar story to yourself. Finally, we'll be going through some practical examples and tips on how you can actually do this in practice, and we will be ending our session today with an open Q&A from your side. So, how does storytelling works? Because basically, whenever you're telling a story, you're taking pieces of information and you're organizing them in a narrative, so just in a story. This makes it a lot easier to retain, so to remember, but also to recall information. So, also for yourself, whenever you're learning something, whenever you're trying to remember an important piece of information, it is always easier whenever you put it in a context, whenever you put it in a story. And the same goes for recruiters and for people who work in HR. So, for us, storytelling is very important because it makes it easier for the person to remember the information that you're trying to give to them. And you might be wondering, well, I can actually get the job that I want as long as I have the skill. Nowadays, this is not entirely correct. Let me show you why. So, basically, nowadays, along experiences and skills and the technical aspect that everyone has, personality is a very important aspect of why people get hired. And for 70% of the cases, whenever people are trying to make a decision to hire or not to hire a person, this makes a difference in picking this person. Additionally, well, of course, education plays a role, but also appearance and other factors play a major role in this process. But personality is one of the most important aspects. And you may be wondering, usually during a job interview, you have around 30, 45 minutes in order to show who you are via a story. So, how are you going to do this? How does this work? Basically, also according to studies, emotions are what makes this difference. So emotions are what makes one application gets noticed, gets noticed by the recruiters, gets noticed by the persons in HR, and the other one gets rejected. The other one just doesn't really get noticed because of a certain thing, which is emotions. So whenever we're telling a story, we're trying to make other people feel something that we have felt. And this is also called empathy. So, whenever we're telling a story to another person, we're trying to make the other person feel what we have felt before. And just imagine how, we've been through a certain situation, accomplished a certain accomplishment, and just went away with it. So, basically, really, emotions is what makes the difference in it. And as mentioned, personality as well. So, putting into perspective, emotions, personality, and how it all comes together, there is a certain way to put it together, which is really storytelling, which you can do during your job interview. And, you know, as you are starting the interview, you are going to be asked the golden question that everyone gets asked during the interview. Tell me more about yourself. And here, most people get stuck. Here, most people think, okay, what am I gonna say? Which story should I share? Which part should I say? And it is very important to get this question right, because usually people tend to remember the first pieces of information that they're given. So if you have an entire interview of 30 minutes, most likely the recruiter will remember the first couple of minutes better than the parts that comes more towards the middle or the end. So basically, recruiters and other people, they tend to remember information better whenever it is presented at the beginning of an interview. So let's say that you are presenting the most essential pieces of yourself during the first couple of minutes on the interview, you have a better likelihood of getting the job as long as you are presenting the relevant information. And this is what we call the primacy effect. And this is a real thing in psychology. It really means just that people have this tendency to remember information better at the beginning of the interview. But this also means that you have a lot of power to actually make people remember it. So, why does storytelling work? How does it work, or why does it work? Basically, whenever you're telling a person a story, you are making them elicit positive information. This results in a rush and in a good feeling that we also call dopamine in our bodies and in our brains. This dopamine hormone makes people remember better and makes them remember information and remember things better whenever they're feeling this feeling that comes because of dopamine. And this basically creates this post-it effect, so, this memo effect of people saying, remember this piece of information. I want you to remember this because this made us feel good. This is how storytelling works in a nutshell, and this is why it works. So, whenever we're hearing this, you might start wondering, okay, so now I know how it works and why it works. But this also means that you, as a person, as a candidate, as an applicant, have a lot of power to shape the narrative that you want to shape your story, but you can also make anyone feel good about yourself. So you can really make anyone feel good about the story that you're telling. You can make anyone feel good about you and have a better likelihood to get the job that you would like to get. So, really, the quickest way to land on the positive side of the recruiter is to is very, very, very simple. Just appear more credible, more authentic, so more yourself, and more memorable. So they should remember you better than your peers, so than the people who are also applying to the same job. With that, as mentioned, you have a lot of power. You have a lot of control over the recruitment process, unlike what you might be thinking. So it is really up to you to present the information that you would like to present. And it's really up to you to shape the narrative that you would like to shape in the way it makes you feel good and that makes other feel good about yourself. So this is in a nutshell how storytelling works and why it works scientifically. So you might say, well, I know myself. I know the pieces of information that I would like to present, but how am I going to put it in a very concrete way? And there is a very simple way to do so. So let's review a technique that is called a personal storyline. It is really that you are going to draw a line which represents yourself, and you can do this also in your free time. So basically, just start on reflecting and remembering what are the major, life events, or what are the major things that happened in your life that made a significant change, whether it's related to your future job that you would like to get, or to just yourself, your personality, who you are. Maybe if you moved from a country to another, from a city to another, any life event, no matter how big or how small it is. And now the following slide will just show you an example of just a typical example of one of our fellows who actually took our Recoded bootcamp. So this is just a mock example. This is just not a very real one, but a very typical one, I would say. So as you can see, we have a line. We have a straight line. Above, we can see achievements, and below, we can see challenges. You can also do this at home. So basically, just start by thinking, what are the major stops that I had in my life? What are the biggest things that I've accomplished? So in this example, we see high school, we see university, we see Recoded Bootcamp, and we see graduation and internship. For Recoded Bootcamp, we actually offer, you can say, courses in web development. So you can also feel free to go ahead and check them out on our website. So these are the major life events for this person. You can see they went to high school, to university, to the boot camp, and then they graduated and got an internship. A very, very typical example. But in each example, you have amazing little stories here and there and amazing qualities. So for this person, we can start off by thinking, okay, so in high school, they took a computer class in school and they bought their first laptop. So this could be a very nice story to tell. We go we go here, and the challenge is they had to move to another country far, far away from their homeland, which could happen to anyone. And of course, to some people, they would say, this is not a challenge, but you can find a lot of interesting qualities in here. For an achievement, we go up. This person got accepted into software engineering at the university, but unfortunately failed their first year. They wanted to quit because of the language barrier, but they also had to work and to study at the same time. So we see here a certain fluctuation, and this happens to everyone. Not everyone's storyline is perfect. Not everyone goes from 0 to 100 in one step. Everyone has accomplished, everyone went through certain challenges, but also, overcome these challenges, whether it is personal, whether it's study related, it can be anything really. So, as mentioned, this person, they failed their first year and they really wanted to quit university. However, during the university, they got accepted into Recruited Bootcamp. And the bootcamp is a course of 6 months in which we offer a lot of very, very nice things when it comes to tech development and to a variety of different knowledge. So basically, just feel free to check this out on our website. But during the bootcamp, it was really difficult to work with teams, but this person overcame this challenge. So this is one challenge that you can see that's mentioned very clearly. Towards the end, towards the end of the storyline, of course, we can see that this person graduated with a good GPA, got completed the bootcamp, and got an internship. So this person now has this very, really nice internship and they want to find a job. But finding a job is very difficult, applied to many jobs, also got rejected from many jobs. Just one of the very typical examples. And what you can see here is that you can see this fluctuation of, going up to a certain achievement, but also facing a challenge, overcoming this challenge, going up again and down again and up again. So this is the full storyline. This is the entire story from high school to, graduation, getting an internship and gaining some experiences. However, this is not the case for everyone, of course. Let's just see another example. And for this person, things were a little bit more different. So also the same, got their laptop, got interested into the tech industry, moved away. However, they started self-learning. So they did not really go to university. They started learning web development on their own individually, which also shows a very, very nice skill of self-learning, of development, but also this eagerness to learn, this willingness. But they had to work at a restaurant, didn't really like it, had a boss who micromanaged them, so really kept on tracking them each moment of the day. And also, learning coding was very challenging whenever you're going to do this individually and on your own. Additionally, here, went to the boot camp, was difficult to work with teams. At the end, finding a job is difficult. They're getting support from our team. However, finding a job is not that easy thing to do. So here we see two very different, not very, but two different storylines, I would say. Two different storylines of two imaginary people. And while I'm telling this storyline, you might start on reflecting on yourself and to think about different challenges that you have, but also thinking about different opportunities that you might have gotten in your personal life. So, how does this apply to an actual job interview? What are you going to say during an interview? Are you going to present your entire story, starting from your childhood up to your now search, your search for a job? Or are you going to select pieces of information in order to put it in a nice story? Here is a nice indication to do so. So, whenever you're telling a story, and now we have told two different stories, you will find a lot of different strengths, but also weaknesses. In here, we have written a list of strengths that you might have noticed from this story. So, for example, we can see passion for tech, relevant university degree in example one, recorded experience, working as an intern, also in example one, time management, ability to adapt, languages, maybe, passion for learning, teamwork, being a hard worker, personal background, high GPA, also example one, dealing with stressful situations, different projects at Recoded, but also maybe at the university or at personal life. These side job experiences, overcoming difficulties and stress, and multitasking, and of course, many more other strengths that you can notice. And, with this entire list of strengths and also the story, you have to start picking. So, people also don't have this amazing skill for being a good listener. Not everyone is a good listener. So, whenever we're telling a piece of information, it's very important to pick the pieces that we would like to pick. And depending on the job description that you're applying to, you can pick the skills that are relevant. So, usually in job descriptions, we can see certain requirements and certain qualities that the company is requesting. So, including these qualities, you can see stuff that are related to your skills. So, to your technical skills, to how good you are in tech, but also other skills that are related to yourself. So it can be time management, it can be teamwork. So we're highlighting some important aspects in here. It can be your ability to deal with stressful situation. Maybe that you had other experiences in other industries that are really important to them. So it can be really anything. And your first stop or your first way in order to find these pieces of information is to look at the job description, so at the job advertisement. When you do so, try to highlight important aspect of that job description. What are they looking for? Try to understand what is the company looking for and what do you have and what you are willing to offer. So let's say that they're saying, we want someone who is able to manage their own time and work independently. So, in your answer to the first question, tell me more about yourself, it's very important to highlight that you maybe have the skill of time management. And how do you have it? So, don't only mention the skill, but also mention why and how. And we'll show you in a little bit how you're going to do this. If they, let's say, ask, we want someone who's able to work in teams, it's very important to highlight the aspect that you're actually able to work in teams. And sorry, let's say that they ask for someone who is good in dealing with stressful situation, but also to, deal with different kind of people, different stakeholders at a time, then you can also highlight this aspect. So it's really about you picking and choosing what you would like to highlight. Again, depending on the job description, make sure to highlight relevant aspect of your story whenever you're telling your story, whether it is during the first question, which is telling more about yourself, but also throughout the entire interview. Only pick things that you think are relevant. Yeah. So, here are the most important tips and tricks that you may have for storytelling. The number one tip, which is the very most essential one, is to walk in the recruiter's shoes, which is not in literal words, so don't really pick their shoes and walk in it. But what we mean with it is that you need to kind of think from their perspective. So to think, what is the recruiter thinking about? What would the recruiter would like to know about you? So what does that mean is to do your research about the company and about the position. This will allow you to to create a narrative, a story of how or what you want to bring to the table as the perfect candidate for this position. So basically, try to think by reading the job description and reading the advertisement that the company has published, how are you the best candidate for that job? You don't have to have all the qualities or the skills that they're requesting, but you have to have some of them, but to also be able to highlight that you can learn the rest of those qualities. Additionally, so that's the first step. So redo your search and try to create this search about the company and about the values of the company. We move on to the second tip. So as mentioned, first of all, walk in the recruiter's shoes, trying to figure out what they're looking for and who they are looking for by doing your search about the company, the position, but also reading very carefully through the job description. Secondly, whenever you do so, so you know what they're wanting. You really know what the company is looking for. As a second step, start by prioritizing strengths. So start by thinking, what are the things that I have and that are my main strengths? And the company is looking for it as well. Make sure to highlight these strengths. So basically, for hiring managers, they meet a lot of people throughout the day. They meet maybe for a position more than 10, 15 people, and they go through hundreds of CV for the same position, which can be challenging. So it can be challenging for them to remember and to remember the most important information. So whenever you're telling a story, whenever you're telling pieces of information, make sure to pick one or two very important strengths and highlight them in your story. So highlight these examples, highlight these strengths, and put it into your story. It is very essential as well to provide examples. So don't only say, I have excellent management skills. Also mention how did you actually acquire these skills. So you can say instead, during my work at this restaurant, I was responsible for managing two people. And by doing so, I acquired very important and very nice management skills. So this is also one way to do it. The second style is to present. Is the first the last point is to choose one format to do so. So by doing so, you are actually telling your story. So how are you going to tell it? Make sure to tell first the things that are happening right now, so the present, then move on to the past, and finally to the future. So the present, what are you currently doing? What are your current goals? Maybe if you just graduated, you can also say, I just graduated, I am looking for a job. Your past, so your past experiences, your past, your past, basically your past experiences, your past education. And finally, your future. So the last point, which is your future. What are you looking for? What are your goals? What are you aiming to learn? And basically, just mentioning what your career goals are. Yes. So these are the most important tips and tricks to use whenever you're telling a story. So to put this more into practice, let's see how we can actually do it with an actual example. So here's a very practical example for you. First of all, start by the present. So the present is what you're currently doing. So for the first example or the first timeline that you have seen, we can say, currently I work at XYZ, what is the name of the company, as an intern. I've been there for a year, maybe less. It's really up to you and up to your experiences. My responsibilities include writing customs, HTML, PHP, CSS, and JavaScript for existing websites and applications. I also design and recommend improvements for features. I consider myself to be a learner, so my number one goal was to learn more during this internship. I asked many questions and I asked for help when needed. So this is the first piece of your story, and it's really about the present. So what you can see here are very important aspects. This piece, starting with here, I consider myself to be a learner, is the piece where you would like to pick and choose things that are suitable for the position. So let's say that they asked explicitly during this position, we would like to have someone who's a learner, who is able to learn things quickly. So you can really add this up in here. Finally, here, you can also see I ask many questions and ask for help when needed. This also shows a tendency for collaboration, a person who is willing to work in teams, but also a person who is willing to say, hey, I'm in trouble, can you help me out? So this is the piece on the present side. And this is the first piece that you can do it or that you can present it. Moving on to the core part, which is your past. So in past, we can say, before working at the company, I completed my education at Recode Bootcamp, which helped me develop my web development skills as I coded for this amount of hours and worked on this project. So here, whenever you see an XYZ sign, it means that you can actually customize this into your own story. So let's say it's over 50 hours, 60 hours, 150 hours, it's really up to you. and worked on certain projects. So here also make sure to pick the relevant projects for yourself. Additionally, so here we can see, it also equipped me with the ability for XYZ. If relevant, or if you have a relevant university degree, you can say, I also have a degree in software engineering. So during my studies, I learned how to design this, how to create this, how to do so. And here, if you do not really go to a relevant university, you can mention, I also developed myself individually in tech while doing XYZ, learning this on the web, while taking this online course, perhaps while discussing with friends. So it's very important just to show how you actually learned stuff and how you became the person that you are today. Finally, here, see also another very important aspect. During my studies, I had to work, so time management is a key skill for me. So let's say that they ask in the vacancy, we want someone who is able to manage their own time and to work independently. You can say, well, time management is a key skill for me. I learned it because I had to work and to study at the same time. So that's also a very nice example. Finally, the future. So here we can think about a very also a nice aspect is to say, well, I am looking to further develop my skills. So what skills? Here also specify what kind of skills are you looking for to develop. So why are you applying for this job basically? As a web developer in this environment. So also you can talk about the environment that they have at their work. And I am interested in your company specifically because of So here, a very important aspect, as mentioned, you need to tailor this to your own audience. So let's say that you're trying to work for a company that really appreciates excellence and that appreciate people who are analytical and very accurate in their work. So you can also here mention, I am interested in working for your company specifically because you appreciate people who are analytical, you appreciate excellence, but you also appreciate teamwork, for example. So here it is very important to do your search and to understand your audience before you do your interview. So this was a very practical example of how you can do it. And just to summarize everything that we have previously mentioned, in short, whenever people ask you the question, tell me more about yourself, it really boils down to the question, what do you like or what do you want the interviewer to remember about you? So, what do you want other people to remember about yourself during the interview? And this was our short workshop on how you can actually use storytelling technique to impress hiring managers and to impress, others during the job interviews.